Want to know the slowest way to learn a champion? Nike will tell you, just do it. If you want to learn a champion from 0 mastery points, having never played them nor watched any streams or VODs of them being played, just loading up into norms or even ranked is going to be a long road to actually learning this champion. You know what? Let's just start off with a lot of what not to do's when it comes to learning a champion. Number 2, it's not always a good idea to take the advice of people from Champion Main's Discord or Reddit. You're optimally getting your champion advice from master tier players or higher, and on Discord or Reddit, any ranked player can tell you anything, and they can sound very confident in their advice while being very wrong. I'll talk more about the Champion Main's Discord and Reddit later as useful resources, but for other reasons. This is just a pitfall to watch out for. Thirdly, and most holistically speaking, don't try to discover stuff about the champion on your own. League of Legends has been figured out more or less. Anything and everything there is to know about your champion should be on the internet, and it'll be much faster to use while you're crinkling a wrapper, to use the already established resources than to do your own discovery and theory crafting. So we know the wrong, or at least the inefficient ways of learning a champion. What's the fastest way? How can we speedrun the learning process so that we master the champion as painlessly and efficiently as possible? Let's start our process by seeing what pro players do if they want to learn a champion from scratch. They might ask high-ranking one-tricks of that champion. In 2018, professional North American AD carry deftly consulted the high elo Heimerdinger one-trick, Heisendong, for coaching on Heimerdinger. What you should do is not so different. There are a lot of great resources out there, maybe even from challenger one-tricks or professional players, that you can use to augment the learning process. First, the basics you should cover include the optimal runes, itemization, and skill order for your champion. Some of my favorite websites include ProBuilds and League of Graphs, where you can see the OPGGs of the best players on each champion. Note that the metrics League of Graphs uses for determining the best players of each champion can be a little off. The reason I recommend this website, however, is simply as a method of finding corroboration. Even though League of Graphs might, say a Diamond 2 Aurelia player is the best solo queue Aurelia in the world, it at least shows you what a bunch of the top players on that champion are taking in terms of the same rune and build setups. After that, you want to look at various guides in either text or video format. Most guides on guide websites aren't that great. Like, people in gold can make their own guides, post them, and get more positive feedback than their neighboring guides by diamond or higher players. And yes, of course, you don't always have to be high ranked to be a good League of Legends coach or teacher, but if someone's below masters, you should take what they say with a grain of salt, or at least be actively trying to counter or question what they have to say, and if you find that what they're saying is solid, maybe just go with it. The best way is to see what information is corroborated across multiple different sources. For instance, when the runes, itemization, and skill order used by players featured in pro builds agree with the runes, itemization, and skill order offered by multiple different guides, you're probably in the green. You might be in the red when you see a guide that is not corroborated by any reputable sources. This is the 3rd highest guide on Modifier for Nami, written by a Gold 4 player. Right off the bat, you're suggested to take Exhaust as well as Nimbus Cloak as well as Resolve Secondary. No professional player in solo queue is doing this. Very few of the top players on League of Graphs are doing this, so you immediately know this is not a reliable source. Sometimes you run into an issue where there is a lack of corroboration. When I was learning Janna a few weeks back, I was looking at OPGGs of high elo Janna mains or one-tricks to see what they had in common. Here's 3 different players with 3 different preferences for secondary rune trees. From rank alone, I could not discern which player was better or which player was right, if at all. So I just decided that each rune setup was viable, and I worked through the logic of which setup would be optimal in each situation. Once you know the proper basics of the champion's build, you move to gameplay. Practice Tool is your best friend here. You're going to be learning your basic combos and animation cancels, as well as last hitting and jungle clears when applicable. The importance of learning combos was elucidated best by ex-FSN Saber, who said, as I roughly paraphrase it, "If you can't do it on dummies, you'll never be able to do it on real players." The guides should have helped you to learn the basic combos, so you can practice them here. Trying to create or discover combos on your own is enormously inefficient. You should first find someone to tell you on the internet, or otherwise, that QEQW on Rise is your main full damage combo, and then just practice it, rather than trying to dig through a sea of potential combos to fish it out on your own. More to work on is the ranges of your abilities and auto attacks, the widths of your spells, all the geometrical sort of stuff that you will learn over time. As Orianna, I would try to ult target dummies at the very edge of the spell's cast radius. This sort of thing gets you very familiar with the champion very quickly. After you've warmed yourself up in Practice Tool, you can now try some normal games. You know your runes, what to build, and what abilities to level, so the only real concern is how to play. You can get your own personal feel for your champion's power at certain level and item spikes throughout the game this way. You also pick up on your champion's strengths and weaknesses. Going back to what I said earlier about everything you need to know about the champion being provided for you on the internet, yes, this still rings true. It is here in-game where you should be able to see how what is said on the internet lines up with your own in-game experience. Once you get into real games, you may even want to take notes while you learn this champion, especially if the champion you're learning is a big venture from the champion pool you're comfortable with. For instance, as a mid lane main, my notes for learning Janna support might have looked something like this. To aid with all the gameplay, replay channels are very helpful. The one I use is Domisum Replay. Studying up on these high elo VODs works wonders for learning the champion. Pay attention to things like if the high elo players in these VODs are using their abilities more or less or in the same ways than you, if they're playing forward or back in a situation where you might not necessarily be. Try to find the reasoning behind their gameplay and try to replicate it. Even more than just learning about the champion, you can learn about the game at a higher level. These VODs are really that good. There are playlists dedicated to not only each role, but each champion, so you can see whole bounties of videos dedicated specifically to what you want to learn. More helpful resources, so many helpful resources. If VOD reviewing doesn't do it for you, find high elo, preferably educational streamers that play or main the champion you want to learn. How can you find these streamers? Through more resources. There is a subreddit dedicated to the mains of each champion in League of Legends, and these reddits usually have their own list of resources, including streamers, you can use to learn the champion. So we are really creating a whole network of educational resources that you can access and use at your will. It makes picking up a champion very fast and very easy. Not to mention that these champion mains subreddits almost always have an associated Discord, with which you can talk to people in live time about the champions. A disclaimer, however, the people you interact with on both the subreddit and the Discord are prone to being biased, our champion is weak and bad, and misinformed, since this is where, most often, the lowest ranked players get a voice. But at the very least, you can talk and share ideas with these people about the champion you're learning, and getting others who main that champion to corroborate your findings and your initial impressions can be comforting and give a much needed confidence boost, as I'll mention later. Of course, you might find that the methods I'm offering don't work for you, and you like doing everything that I'm telling you not to do. Whatever works, works, right? And you know yourself better than I know you. But I think that you should at least try different ways of learning a champion. Alright, summary time. Here's 2 visuals of who you should be getting your advice from and in what order you should be using each resource. Note the big gap between the first and last 2 sources. That's meant to visually signify the potential massive gap in quality between the sources. Now for this visual, blue text is for runes, itemization, and skill order. Yellow text is for gameplay, learning proper combos, power spikes, just how to play the champion in general. Something I forgot to mention earlier, but am no longer able to fit into that earlier point of the video due to the way I've edited this so far. You'll notice that the resources such as Pro Builds, League of Graphs, and even Domisum Replay are always going to be up to date with the information they offer. This is a trait you'll be hard-pressed to find in written guides, and even more rarely in video guides, whose information regarding runes, itemization, and skill order is prone to going out of date potentially very quickly, and this is why I only list the former 3 resources as good sources of information for runes, itemization, and skill order. The only advice I have now left to offer is to be patient. Yes, this video is about learning a champion as fast as possible, and the more you intelligently use the resources I've offered, the faster you should pick up the champion. Still, it's taken me personally 50,000 mastery points until I'd become comfortable blind picking Syndra. Same case with Aurelia. Feeling confident, comfortable, and capable on a champion is not something that happens overnight. It's not something that happens in a week. This is something that requires a lot of patience, so keeping both your mental and confidence fresh is important, especially through the bad games where it feels like you didn't learn anything. Okay, good luck.